Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Monday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now before I get started, gotta give a shout out to my trusted cause you guys rock, to my crazy fam, I love you guys. Now we're up to episode number 90, and last week we left off with a useful fragment shader. Now if you did your homework and you did a little bit of playing around with it, you found out that the shader's a pretty nice little easy and useful shader. Okay, now we made our own right here. Even though we got copied out of the book, you write it all down, you get it all in here, and this right here is, from these 3 marks to these 3 marks, is C+ code, and same with this one to this one, but the rest is Python or BGE or Blender Python. Okay, so there's not really much difference in Python and Blender Python. The only difference that I've ever noticed is that you're going from the BGE and you're importing like its logic and its stuff, but it's basically uses Python. A lot of the libraries, are Python libraries, but there are basically Blender versions of Python, just like kind of like if you followed my my learned experience videos, when I was learning Python, we were actually working from a library called Pygame. And if you want to check that out, I'll throw it in here somewhere. But it's the same thing with Blender. Blender uses the Python code, and it also uses C++ coding as well, but that's mainly for the API. Okay, basically your user interface for Blender, this little deal right here. But last week we went ahead and put this all in, and if I shift back to there, okay, we did the coding and all that, and I thought there was going to be a big explanation, but there wasn't. Okay, I ended here so that because I had to get off kind of quickly, so we're going to continue on from here, and then continue on to a useful vertex shader. Okay, all right, this shader uses the Lambert diffuse shading algorithm to apply some basic shading to the object, taking into account the position of the lamp and the surface normal at each pixel. This is still not a terribly useful shader, since the same effect can be achieved without a single line of coding via the material panel. What they're talking about is if we switch over to here, okay, we can go right, let me bring this up so we can go to the material panel. You can do it all right here with the same stuff without even using code, because you've got light effects and stuff like that you can put in there, your lamps, constant values, so on and so forth. Okay, so don't let coding scare you. Okay, because what you do in code can actually be done in here. Coding just gives you a little bit more flexibility. Okay, and what I mean by flexibility is you get more, you can do more things with it. It's the same thing with nodes, which we'll get into later. I'm not going to get too far into that, but you can do the same thing with nodes, than you can with like Python. Okay, so that's just a little bit of knowledge there, because this right here will help you out later on in time. Okay, if you learn how to do it. You can do it through bricks. I know a buddy of mine does all brick work. His is logic brick, and then his game looks pretty doggone good. But most of the time, if you really want to get some, really cool stuff like how Game 3 runs, if you haven't learned about Game 3, come on over to my server, give Day a holler, and he'll let you know all about it and how you can possibly get it if you want to try it out. But Game 3 is a very powerful Python built, okay, basically a little mini engine. It actually makes it so you get a character and so on and so forth in your game. But it's not for the faint of heart. If you don't understand it and you get it, you're going to get lost, because that's all code. Okay, so you got to figure out how to get it in there and all that. It gives you as much information as he can, but most of it is you got to learn it yourself. Trust me, I found this out myself. Okay, so let's continue on. Okay, we'll leave it to you to discover more complex shaders on your own. So you're going to be able to find more complex shaders or figure them out on your own, which is better to do, because sometimes you can figure it out a lot better. But sometimes when you're trying to figure something out on your own, you take the long way around. Trust me, learning a long way, I've done that many a time, so try not to do it the long way. If you can get help, get help. Alright, so a useful vertex shader. This GLSL shader applies to transformation to each vertex along the x-axis, producing a wavy effect. Similar to that of leaves waving in the wind, using vertex shaders to deform geometry is a fast alternative to using bones. Okay, so I'm going to switch over here so you can see the coding that they're talking about. Okay, this is the code that they're talking about for that. And it used to be able to just copy and paste, but it don't do it that way. It don't do it right anymore. So I'm going to actually have to put it in. And so we're just going to go ahead and just look at it and then go from there. Okay. When you get to the book, you're going to put this in. Okay. You want to put this in verbatim. Now, if you notice that the shader over here basically has the same information. Uniform float timer, but doesn't have uniform float timer here. Okay. You're going to be changing out some stuff. Okay, we're not going to need the lamp, but we will need this logic. Oh, see, look at that. I even got a typo in my stuff, and nobody said anything to me except for my buddy A, who said something about being a typo king, because yes, I was rushing through this very, very quickly. But you're going to run into mistakes like that. It's going to happen, and you're going to have to work through them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this one out, like that one shows, okay, and then we keep my vertex shader, my 3 quotes. I'm going to keep all up to uniform, and then I'm going to change this one right here to float timer, okay, float, yeah, right, timer, all right, so that's that one, okay. The next one is going to be void main, so we're going to get rid of all this. We don't need any of that. Now we got void main, got that, and then you can bring that down. Okay, and GL position, no, we're not going to need any of that stuff. So what we're going to do is going to take all these right here, and we're just going to make them disappear. And we're going to type all this in. We're going to hit // okay, get the first UV layout. Now in C++, I'm guessing that's kind of like the pound sign for Python. So different things, but they basically mean the same thing. GL underscore text cord, sorry, OORD. Okay, and then do your little bracket here, standard bracket, not the wavy bracket. 0, standard bracket again, which is the opposite, equals GL underscore multi text cord, and then you're going to put 0 and then put one of those. Okay, hit enter. We're going to do, let's skip down one. Actually, it says 2. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can just go 1. Okay, // fetch the vertex position. Hope I spelled that right. Nope, it's this ton. Not what I was looking for. ION. I knew I did something wrong. Okay. You hit enter. And then you're going to hit vec for the equals GL underscore vertex. Hit your little deal there. Space. Okay, now do the // displace. Let's spell it right. ES. Splices each vertex using a sin wave. Hit enter, and then hit v.x equals v.x again plus the +sign sin bracket. Oh no, I can't remember what half these are. I'm so old with this. Timer, that one too. The one that if you hit shift and you hit 9, that's the one you want. Okay, and then the shift after that, after you hit timer, it's gonna be shift 0. Okay. I can't remember half of these brackets, curly brackets, half brackets. I don't know what they call them these days. Okay, so we did displacement, and then now we're gonna put in GL underscore position. Oh, I hope I didn't mess something up. I didn't do it right. GL underscore position. ION. I always get that one messed up. I don't know why. Put GL underscore mode view project on projection matrix, basically star shift 8, and then and then of course your colon. Okay, now we've already got this one here, and we've already got the 3 bars, 3 things, so we ain't gonna worry about that. Okay, now I'm gonna go down to my fragment shader. Okay, because we just did the vertex shader. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna come down to the fragment shader, and it's gonna have uniform. So we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna hit enter, hit uniform, sampler, 2D color map, colon, and we're going to get rid of these 2 here. Space. We got the void main. Okay, we're going to put that one there and hit enter just to bring that down, and that's it. That's all. Well, yeah, that's it. So the rest of this. Oh, no, I missed it. I'm looking down. I just jumped past it, y'all. I apologize. Okay, so we're going to do vec4. And then we're going to go ahead and get rid of all this stuff here. The vec4 color. No, actually, we can get rid of all this, because we got vec4 color right here. And then we'll go ahead and get rid of all that, because we're going to do that completely different. So text. Sure. Oops. Must be in the wrong spot again. Sure. To shift D. Make sure you make that capital, because this is important. Color map, comma, GL underscore text code. Make sure that C is capitalized. The small block brackets, 0, small block brackets. It's basically next to the P, if you're wondering, and you don't know what it's called either, or you know what it's called. Hey, just let me know in the description or in the comments. We'll see what we can do. I'm old, so I just forget stuff. Okay, so GL fragment color equals color is that we're gonna keep. We're gonna keep the last curly bracket, and we're gonna keep these last 3. Okay, so now we're going to come down here. Let's hit a space just to go ahead and give a little room there. Okay, mesh shader object dot meshes 0. We're going to keep. For material in mesh dot materials, we're going to keep. Shader equals material dot get shader. We're going to keep. And then if shader does not equal none, we're going to keep. And if not shader dot is valid, we're going to keep as well. And then shader dot set source vertex shader comma fragment shader 1 we're going to keep, and that one's taken back 1, and it's shader let's go ahead and we got to go down here, hit one more, hit back 1, and then shader. Okay, so you just made a space. We got to put this one in. It's just going to be added. Shader dot set sampler colon, or not colon, but the bracket. Okay, we're going to do instead of hitting shift and making it that, we're going to make it that. Okay, that's what they got in there. That's what I'm going to put. Color map, and then hit another one of those. Okay, it's about the same thing. In Python, you can use either those, or you can use a double quote or a double quote. You can use either one. Okay, so most people, if you got a quote and you're using a quote, then you want to make sure you don't use that quote. It's a Python thing. Go check out my learning experience. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, and then 0. Okay, and then end bracket, and then set uniform, and we got to change this from FV to 1F. Okay, so number 1 and F, and then you're going to change this to timer. Okay, then you're going to get rid of this one here. Okay, and you can type in shader object, then square bracket, double quote, timer, double quote, small bracket, end bracket. Okay, now these you want to make sure, oh, you don't have to put the end bracket, I did an extra one, I'm sorry. You want to make sure that if you start with a bracket, you end with a bracket. If you start with a square bracket, you end with a square bracket. If you start with a double quote, then you end with a double quote. If you start with a single quote, you end with a single quote. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind whenever you're working with that. Everything has to be closed in. Okay, if it's not closed in, it won't work, and you'll wind up having errors. These are things that are going to happen in this right here. Okay, in that right there. Okay, so a little bit of Python knowledge right there. Okay. So now we got to the end of that, okay? And it says, this shader introduces yet another new concept called uniforms. Using uniforms is one way to pass data from the Blender world to the shader, okay? So these uniforms, that one right there, okay? And then there's some uniform up here as well. Where was it at? Yeah, right here, okay? That right there and that one right there will send that information through Blender, and it gets passed back to the shader. Okay. All right. So how far are we in? We're about 17 minutes in. So I'm going to go ahead and read this last little bit, and then we're going to go into 2D filters next week. Okay. So going further, even though GLSL can seem daunting at first, plenty of learning material is available. The accompanying disc has a few more examples of how GLSL can be used. They can be found in the book's chapter 5. Okay, so if you go up in here and you hit open, okay, I am actually in chapter 5, and they've got plenty of things you can play around with in chapter 5. Now, coding 1 you won't see, and I think a couple of these you won't see. Anything that says -1 or -2, that's something I put in there because I was saving it so for the videos, okay? But you'll be surprised what you can find in there. And if I go to the game engine book, let me see if I can find it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking in the game engine book. I'm just in PDFs right now. I go into files, go into chapter 5. Okay, I'm going to bring this over here so you can see it. Okay, now see, you've got all the stuff that, all the blenders, but you also got textures that you can play with too that they have put in there. So you can tinker around with and mess with and come up with your own shaders, okay? Just wanted to show you that so that way y'all can understand what I'm talking about. Kick over here real quick. Nope. I don't know why I'm hitting that one. Okay, let's go out of that. There we go. Okay, so we're leaving off on page 47. Okay, we only went one full page today, but we covered a lot. Coding does take up time, and I'm sorry about that, but when you're typing in code, you can only go so far with typing it out so fast, unless you're really good at typing, and I am not. So bear with me on that. But we ended, you know, the custom shaders. Okay, so next week we're going to start off on 2D filters. So it's about halfway down, I believe, or it's either towards the bottom. Yeah, it's towards the bottom. 2D filters, and you know, hopefully them, you know, we'll be able to get a little bit more in that. But if you don't want to do, you know, any kind of programming, I understand that, because it can be, you know, it can feel daunting. But the more you learn, the better off you're going to be. Okay, so till next week.